Small Talk.
All right. Hey, y'all, we're back for part 2, another episode of Small Talk. We have Sabiné as well as Chris here in the building again. We're talking about growing up Black. This time we're going to touch a little bit on our family dynamics. We're going to dig and dive into it. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I think as a Black culture, implementing things early in the home, or if we jump back to, what we're actually talking about growing up Black, using terms like king and queen or beautiful or gorgeous or even you're doing a great job are not often used in the Black home when you're growing up, right? So Black love in the house, I think is so important that I think that there's a lack. Some people got it, some people didn't, right? But do y'all believe that the tough love that's given? Because Black folks like to describe it as tough love. I'm preparing you for the world. The world's not going to love you. This is how it's going to be. The white man's not going to love you. Do y'all think that creates these things for us as we get older as a Black community to not necessarily grow or have the tools that we needed if we would have just received the Black love at home? If that makes any sense, what I'm saying.
It does. I'm gonna say I think that it is necessary to do it the way that we've been doing it because we need thick skin in this world. But the only thing is, growing up that way just repeats the cycle.
Yep.
It doesn't change it.
And when do you break it? When do you become the one that says, "All right, that didn't work," and I've acknowledged the things that I have wrong with me because of, and I want to do it differently for my children. You can still have tough love, but when I come into my house, I want it to be a place of peace, and the world is not inside my house. So, you know what I'm saying? Like on the outside, I think it's important to understand, all right, put your skin on, and when we go out here, there's a way to behave and stuff like that. But when you're in this house, I do want to be able to show you that you can let your hair down. You can relax and learn things, and it doesn't always have to be tough love. I don't have to always be criticizing you or telling you, yeah, you did well, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I can give you a compliment without having to put but at the end. So there has to be a difference between knowing that in my house, I do feel loved. And then when I go outside, yeah, I'm loved, but it's a tougher love.
Yeah, I think that I just have an issue, especially us talking about like the power of words, right? I don't think that it should be called tough love. Because I think a piece of that is, like, for instance, we hear this a lot, like we would get disciplined, right? And then it's like, I'm doing this because I love you. So then that creates the cycle of, so now I'm expecting, if somebody now says that they love me, at some point pain is going to be connected with that. And that's normal, right? So I don't like the idea of tough love, right? Sure, could it be parental correction? Could it just be correction? Could it just be having a teachable moment? And I think for me, like, I was grateful because like my dad, like growing up, he just got beat, right? With whatever, no explanation, and that was just that. So he decided when he had kids, right? To your point, this is when he was the one that decided to break the cycle. Yes, my brother and I would still get disciplined, but number one, my dad is a lecturer. So he gave us every reason. He would sit us down and explain to us why talking back was not appropriate, the consequences of that. And then there was, so my mom had a different way of disciplining us, right? We're not gonna talk about that, but the constructive way is that, like, my dad would do things for real. Like, he would give us a lecture and then he would have us do like physical activity, i.e. like push-ups, like wall sits, like so me and my brother growing up, we didn't like each other. I don't know what's up with that, but we really just didn't like each other. Then one day we was like, oh wait, we cool. All right, cool. But he would make us just stand eye to eye and just stare at each other's eyes. And then we have to say, I love you. I love you. That was the hardest thing to do. It was, I'll never forget the day my brother was like, just tell mom to hit us. Please tell her to hit us. really helped us to understand, like, number one, like, when somebody loves you, they do take time, to listen to you, but to also teach you, to help you grow. It should be constructive, right? It should be something that's meaningful, because most times, if your parent is only resorting to hitting you, number one, they are now just it's a cycle of trauma response, as I like to say. Right? It's just this cycle, and then that's what will continue. So now I now know that, okay, if somebody's now just trying to correct me, now I don't know how to take constructive criticism. Now I don't know how to take, Brittany, to your earlier point about when somebody's just trying to help me grow and just teaching me a different perspective or a different way of looking at things, and I'm automatically getting defensive. Now I'm automatically getting aggressive. Why? Because that's what I did in my home. If that's home base, then what else would I be doing in the world?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And then you have people that say, well, you can't do this because the only person I can do it is my mama, and my mama don't even do that. You're not my mama, you're not my daddy. Why is that? Because now that disrupts cycles of, like, having mentorship in the community. It's just this whole, so I don't know where I was going with that, what the original question was, but
no, you hit it. And I think, like, and then like, so we're taught that the world is not going to love us, and then you're showing tough love inside the home. So it's like, well, dang, where the love at? You know,
Where's
like,
the break?
we're not getting it. We're not getting it in here. You're teaching us that they're not going to love us out there. So where does it come in? I love Tyler Perry has a huge amount of money, but all of his movies kind of focused on some sort of trauma related something in the Black community, right? And I feel like it's almost like it starts when you're yay high, it starts in your home, and blah 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 blah. Think about it. We sit down, we watch these movies with our teenagers and our youth and our kids, or our young adults that are just now starting to experiencing real dating or whatever they want to call it. But you're watching Black women get beat up, you're watching Black dudes get beat up, talked about, trash this, dude. Most black movies have some form of trauma, underlying trauma in the storyline. And it's just like, yes, we understand our struggles, right? Yes, we understand, you know, that we've gone through some sort of hardships, that angry Black woman, whatever y'all want to call it, we understand it. But to continuously have these types of things, we're taught this at an early age, then we got to watch it on film as young adults, and then kind of like live it, you know, when we are adults. It's really hard, because where's the book, where's our walk to remember? Like, I just we don't have
so
but what
nah, go ahead.
Is it crazy though? Because when we do, I feel like the very few times that we get those movies, we criticize them.
We do.
To no end. Like,
we do.
You see them and everything about it is like, oh, that's phony, all of this, all that. Because we just had the one with Issa Rae and Lakeith Stanfield, I believe, the photograph. And it was a lovely type of movie, but man, the critiques that thing got,
really,
it was like people wanted the Tyler Perry.
But that goes back to what you're taught in the house.
Exactly. Conditioning.
Okay. So I will say programming again. I'm bringing that word up because I really do believe that's where everything comes from entertainment to music. It is a program, and if you're constantly fed something all the time, you're just gonna naturally adapt. And I know when I was little, Uncle Phil was my pops. Like, I didn't grow. I didn't have a father, so Uncle Phil was my pops, and I'm sure by now that term is very played out, but it's the truth. When I watched Fresh Prince, I listened to the guy. I understood it. I wasn't getting any masculine energy from anywhere else, so this was it. Even Carl Winslow, like, I didn't really get it as much as I got it from Uncle Phil, you know. And these shows, when we were younger, at least people that grew up in the 90s, I can say, because now it's different. You had these shows, even the 80s with the Cosby Show and stuff like that. You had the parent figure. They were the stars of the show. The children were the co-stars. Right, but now Hollywood has realized, well, I make more money and more views if I get the kids to watch the show. So now, who do we make the stars? For them to relate to the show, we need to make the kids the stars. So then what do? They make the parents be the fools. And what do we do as parents? Here, watch this. I watch this because I ain't got time to really sit there and babysit. So now you have this thing programming your child. They see, like, Peppa Pig is the worst. She's the rudest person I've ever met in my life. And we literally sit there and be like, oh, she's watching Peppa Pig. What? Why? Why are we doing this? Take it off. And that's just because, well, most of us, we come from a very, I know my mom, independent Black woman, working this, that, and the third. She didn't have time to watch me. You know, when you look in other cultures, they can be housewives. So they can sit there and actually take the time to, you know, do that stuff. So when we get home, we're too tired to take the time and discipline them the right way because we're tired ourselves. So we just let these things discipline them and let them program our kids. Like even Disney today. When was the last time you seen a Johnny Tsunami or like any one of those great Disney movies when we were younger? Hocus Pocus, like, you know, all of those things. We don't get that at all. So now, not only as parents are we fighting the time that we don't have to spend with our kids, but we're also battling the music. Cardi B literally said, I will never let my, what did she say? I don't want to let my kid listen to my music. So then why are you giving it to the other kids? You know?
See, but that's a parenting thing.
Okay, it is a parenting thing, but to me, it's not an individual-based parenting thing. Yes, you control your household.
You should.
But if the entertainment industry would control it on a parental level in general, then now we don't have to worry about what our kids are watching. We don't have to worry about what our kids are listening to because we know that the country has got us parentally. You know what I mean? But now we got to do it on an individual basis. But no, for them, it's just money. And when greed and money comes into play, because at the end of the day, the reason why you go to work and you can't spend it for your kid is why? Because of money. So at the end of the day, you're bringing most of these problems into your home literally because of money. And who is, I would say, the group that's classified to be the most impoverished group in America? It would be us.
Yeah.
So we have no, it's almost like we have no choice.
Yeah.
We can sit there and try our best to be different parents than our parent before us, but we now understand the struggle that we went through when we grew up. So a part of you does want to be stern. You have to, because if you're not stern, then they're gonna go out into the other world. And this was my problem. You're gonna go out into the world and think that it's all roses, and boom, you're just gonna be culture shocked. Like, yo, this is happening for real? I didn't realize that. And that's not good, because now if that person doesn't realize that in their teens and they realize that in their 30s, now they probably experienced that way too late before they can recover. But at least if they experience it when they have the energy and the time to do it when they're young, and that's because of the parent in that situation. But I do like the fact that you changed the word from tough love to parental correction, because again, that's huge. It isn't tough love, it is parental correction, and I really enjoy that.
It's crazy because that's not even taken into consideration the dynamic in Black households with not having both parents.
Yes.
That's another thing.
Like, if you don't have your mother, you don't have your father, and now you're one parent who's left to do the work of both.
Yeah.
That's exhausting.
And it's kind of impossible. I'm sorry. I know I'm taking up too much time. I get passionate with these kind of things. So when you have, Sabine, a great point. First of all, my mom is the greatest female on earth. No offense to anybody here, but I'm just saying. But however, she did it on her own. Right? She didn't. I didn't have any masculine. My coach in high school was the first masculine energy I really got. You know what I mean? And even then, it wasn't the same. A woman, I personally believe, and I could be wrong, cannot raise a man. They can raise a boy to be a grown-up, but they can't raise a man, because there are just certain things that you don't go through as a female to understand and relate what a man goes through. For instance, dating. You can't tell me, oh, be yourself. No, that is going to get you killed out here. Don't do that. Don't be yourself. You know what I mean? The same thing with a father. A father cannot raise a daughter to be a woman. It's impossible. What happens at that time of the month? What you gonna do? Well, usually when I get it, I don't get it. So it's impossible. You need both dynamics in the house. And not to mention, I feel like you need to see as a child how your father is treating the mother and why your mother stays in with your father in that loving relationship. Because now, what do they say? You know, every son wants to find a woman like his mother. And then every daughter wants to find a guy like like her father. Why? Because that's the thing that they've seen their whole life. Now, if I see that going back to king and queen, if my father is calling me queen and nobody else, I know I need to find a man who treats me to that status. So now I'm not going to not love myself and become an OnlyFans model because I want to find a man who appreciates me this way, not as, you know, some meat out here. Same thing as a son. You know, I know that I need a woman who is in her femininity, who is submissive and doesn't want to combat me because I'm the deadbeat. You're just furthering the narrative that I don't want to be with my people, and that's why white women. You know, it is what it is. So now, if that mother is in that dynamic and being treated very well from the father, because it could also go left too. If she stays in an abusive relationship, that's what's going to happen to the daughter and vice versa. But I'm just saying, in a loving relationship, if they're watching that unfold, I guarantee, and there's studies on this, they will grow up to be more successful. They will grow up to have a relationship that is successful. And I still envy relationships that are 50, 40 years long. Like, I think that's amazing. I would love to be able to say that, you know, but you know that those people have been through everything. There's not one thing that a person who's been together for 50 years hasn't gone through. It's not, you can't tell me nothing. I don't care. However, they have clearly lasted the test of time. And if your children can see that and they're like, yo, they did it, why can't I? That to me is a better form of hope in any relationship when you stay together. Now, the question is, if you decide to leave, you need to question why you chose this person as a mate in the first place. It isn't the relationship that's messing up. Maybe it's your decision making. However, if you got the child, you decided to stay in it, the best thing to do for that child is to stay in that relationship. No, let me not say that. The best thing to do for that child.
I lost that part.
The best thing to do for that child is to either find a mate that you would want them, if they're a daughter, and you're a woman, you would want them to be with. Or if they're a son, you got to be the best representation of a person that you would want him to be with. And if that isn't the biological person, then you have the authority. It's your duty in this moment to sit there and say, I'm not going to do this alone. Yeah, I'm a strong Black woman, but I'm not doing this alone. You're messing up the child by doing that. You got to go find a mate that says, hey, this is what I want you to mirror when you grow up. It's your duty.
So okay, I'm gonna say this. A lot of thoughts going through my brain, right? So my husband is a stepfather. That's it's not his biological daughter. And without throwing too much of my business out there, co-parenting, biological father, it ain't it, right? So I was fortunate enough to have someone come into my life and not only take on me and put me, I already knew that I was a queen, but he legit adjusted my crown a little bit and then took in my daughter as well, right? And I appreciate that wholeheartedly, but I will say that it wasn't because I was looking for someone to, so I grew up in a home where both of my parents have been married for 38 years. So I don't know, I don't come from a divorced or a single parent home. You know, I always family, we still this day, we still do things together, you know? So for me, now in a toxic relationship, having a daughter, it didn't work out. You know, I was just like, dang, I don't want her to grow up not getting what I what I got.
That's all.
But I also didn't. But I didn't go. So I didn't go out looking for a mate to make sure that she got like the daddy part of it, right? So I'm guessing what my point is that it doesn't even necessarily have to be a mate, as long as there's someone in her life. Because for a minute before my husband came along, and he came along fairly early when she was like 1.5. But prior to that, during her baby stages, when me and her father were not together, my dad, my brother played those male roles in her life. It wasn't my mate. It was obviously. But she got that. It was never lacking for her, never, you know. And even now, she still sees her biological father, and she has a stepfather at home. So it's like she has 5 different men that can tell her, like, watch out for this type of dude. He ain't it, you know. Right. And then can teach her those womanly roles that we all learn. So I don't think that it necessarily has to be a mate. I feel like as long as there's someone in that child's life that can show them both done it, because I'm a woman, so it was easier for me. I have a daughter, but if I had a son, of course, I'd be like, okay, let me find a male, somebody, whether if I didn't have a brother, you know, like somebody to show me those ways.
I just want to rebuttal that point, and I actually played stepdad for 2.5 years, so I kind of understand that dynamic, and you know, I kind of wish the child was still present in my life now, to be honest with you. It's just one of those things. However, when I say, I feel like you proved my point by trying to say you don't need it. Because the fact that you grew up in a household that you never had a single parent lifestyle. And now you knew that that's what you wanted for your daughter. I'm not saying you went out and said, hey, I need to find a guy because my daughter needs it. No, that if that's the case, she has a teacher, she has the reverend. There's so many people out there. But we can't forget yourself. I feel like love comes in many different forms and shapes and sizes. And, you know, intimacy is a necessary part of you know, human biology. You know, some people will go years without it, but at the end of the day, like, if they would rather it than not, even if they say out loud that they don't want it. And I think we have to be selfish in that respect too, that you deserve to be just as needing as that male masculine energy as your daughter, and vice versa. I think that's important to know. You have to have it, because if you're just working and playing the role of 2 people the whole time, you know, I'm not saying find a mate for just your daughter or your son, but for you as well, you know? And you did it. You went and found somebody that you felt
he found
fine.
Me.
Well, even better. You know what I mean? That's my point. Like, somehow the universe has brought y'all together because of what your mindset was growing up. Not that you went in the white pages and like, all right, is this Jim? All right, damn, that's not working. You know, you didn't try to like search for somebody, but you knew that was the dynamic you wanted your kids to grow up in. And that is all I'm saying. When you have a single parent dynamic, especially, oh man, when it's mother, daughter, and it's just them two, literally teaching your daughter how to be an earlier version of yourself. So now if you sit there and say, well, I don't need men, this, that, and the third, what are you forcing onto your kid? And now when you say, I don't need men, this, that, and the third, and you're forcing that onto your kid, what is your kid going to do when they grow up? They're going to still kind of hold some idea of it. Maybe they'll meet somebody that changes their perspective and happily ever after. Maybe they'll find somebody who changes their perspective for a short time, and then they break their heart. And it's like, oh, I should have listened to mom. And now it's over. They're never getting back. And what did you just do? You created a person who now can't pair bond. Because if they can't pair bond, now their intimate moments are going to be just in that moment, and that's it. And now they're gonna find somebody else, and what do we call that in society? You feel me? So to me, I think the psychology of it growing up is a very, very important thing. The thing that you tell your kids now when they're growing up is literally going to reflect itself in the future. And I feel like as parents, we have a duty. I don't care if it's my kid or not. the community raises a child. We have a duty and a responsibility to raise kids in a manner that is not only best in their interests, but in their peers' interests as well.
It absolutely takes a village to raise your children, and that's not just a term to throw out there or a phrase. It's the truth. So I 100% agree with that. But you also have to tread lightly with that too, because when you're out there, quote unquote, looking, you have to walk on eggshells, because you also don't want your door consistently opening and closing. And you're also teaching your child that it's okay to have disparate. Oh, Billy, 2 weeks later, you got Jesse coming over. So you got to be careful with that too, because, and also kids create bonds with people. So that person leaves, you know, and then it's like, oh, well, where's such and such? And it's like, you have to explain that to the child, and So it's a whole realm of things when it comes to children, and even growing up. And I think as a Black culture, we kind of like glaze over that. So I'm happy that we're having this conversation, because it's not talked about enough in our culture, because we think it's okay. Single mom life, people, women and men love to put on this cape and be this cape. Single parent, I got this. That is doing the thing, but I 100% agree with you that having both dynamics in the household definitely plays a role for children. We get the short end of the stick always. Our resources are down the drain. You know, we have to look for things and work a little bit harder for things. So having both dynamics and both perspectives in the household ultimately builds us up to become better people. And that, like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be a mate. Just someone in your life that can empower you as a male and as a female role definitely affects the Black child in general growing up.
Especially because as your kid gets older, they start to understand more, and they start to absorb things like a sponge, you know. So maybe you get away with doing certain, you know, behaviors when the kid is really young and they won't know, but then the kid becomes impressionable and starts to really, oh my gosh, when I see kids who ask them, but why? And you really have to start answering those questions, because you're legit, you know, presenting something to them that is making them question it. You start to be mindful about the things that you do, the things that you say, the way you carry yourself, etc. At least that's what I think. I ain't a parent.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't speak on the, you know, I don't have children. But I definitely do think that it's to both of your points, right? Just how you grow up, it definitely just impacts the young people that you're around, the children that you have or will have, and just how you connect with other people. So even like, so Chris, to your point, right, of not having a male figure around you and how that's impacted you, right? And because of that, because there's always like two sides of it. So now, because like for when you have kids, now it's like, okay, I want to be this type of dad and I want to be very present because this is not what I have. But for other people, it's like, well, I'm just not going to be around because I didn't have that example, right? Or and even Britt, to your point of like, well, I have both my parents in the home and we was cool, so now that's something that I want to have as well, right? So, and I think also seeing like, for me, I had both parents in the home and then I didn't, right? So like, so even seeing how that is, it's like, wow, I thought they were like really, wow, they were together for 25 years and then nothing?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then that is even impacting the way that I view future relationships, right? And even the concept of marriage in general, which is a whole nother podcast.
I want to be there for that one.
But but it really does. It does impact it. And for me, I wouldn't even have some of the thoughts that I have around just relationships and how you connect with people if it wasn't for the things that I saw in the home.
Right.
Because that's the starting place of everything. Whether we want to think about that or not, whether things were present or not, that's where a lot of our ideologies and just the way we feel about culture, people, music, things, it comes from what you either had in the home or did not have in the home. But it all comes full circle, and it builds who you are and how you relate to folks, right? Just in general, of all walks of life. And I think it's just interesting how growing up Black, and even bringing it full circle with that, right? But growing up Black and how it's really just impacted us individually. So like, and I've heard it said like, Black, it's not a monolith. right? So we've all had different experiences, different walks of life, but there are certain things that's like, but growing up Black, there are just some things, and the concept of really this community, this sense of community is something that I think is like, and you see this, I don't know many other cultures that have like family reunions. I don't know many cultures that have like for us, we had a lot of block parties. Now it wasn't everybody for real, but it was the block, and we was just out and about, you know, just because. So I think that sense of community, it really helps to build up our children, and I can say like our children, because when we turn on the news, right, it's like, oh, those Black people, they group us together anyway. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if I can do my part with the young folks, I'll do it.
That's facts.
Yep.
It's funny you mentioned sorry, Brett. You mentioned the household and like what you grew up with and like the music, and I instantly thought of like my mom airing out the house. That's what she says. Like to clean the house, she would air out the house, open up all the windows, turn the AC off, and then she would be blasting like some Mary J. Blige or the weird things.
Saturday morning. It was Saturday morning in my house.
And I feel like I carry that with me as an adult now. There's certain, like, I love 90s R&B because of, you know, what was being played in my house as opposed to like the newer stuff. So yeah.
Yep. Certain things we will always carry over. Even we're so creative. The Black culture is so creative. We're always coming out with some new dances, some new challenges, whatever. And I think about like, you know, our parents doing the Cabbage Patch or the bump or the camel walk or whatever it is. But and then for our age, I'm like, oh, chicken noodle soup, like let's walk it out right quick, you know. But then now they got I don't even know what they doing now. They all this whatever TikTok,
the Junebug,
the Junebug challenge, right? But it's a part of our culture, and it's just passed down from generation to generation. And though even the infamous electric slide that is held down at every Black function, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a repast or a funeral.
Yeah. And we don't only do it to that song. We do it to like every song possible. Like
everything. So it's all a part of the culture, man.
That's so true, Britt. That really just made me think about just line dancing in general. And okay, so line dancing, like I totally get it in the Black community, right? And like, you know, and every region has their own way of doing certain things, right? I love a good line dance, like the electric slide, the cha-cha slide, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right? And I literally remember even like my first time learning the electric slide. It was like, okay, babe, it was at my uncle's wedding. I was about yay high, but it was like a rites of passage, if you will, right?
Yeah.
But then it makes me think about how I know that's just like our culture. Because if you say line dancing in any other culture or anything like that, it is not that, y'all. Okay, it's not that. I showed up to a spot, okay, in Florida. They had on their little hats,
their boots.
Very much country music.
Yeah.
Not what I thought it was gonna be, but
yeah.
I love being Black. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Growing up Black was an adventure, to say the least. But it was a great adventure, and it was unique to us, unique to our community.
That's what it was a privilege. It was a privilege, man. I think it was a privilege. We talk about white privilege all the time, but shoot, there's Black privilege too, and that's being Black. So there we have it. This has been another episode of Small Talk. Listen, we had 3 queens. I'm going to say it. Chris had to jump off. 1 king on our podcast. Yes, we're calling them kings and queens. And we'll tune in. Well, y'all make sure y'all tune in on the next episode.
Bye.